Hello, welcome to a video. This is a little bit different than my videos for students. It's more of a video of some research that I did. And this is the title. So Native-speakerism and its effects on Japanese university students. So let's have a look. So here's the agenda of what I'm going to talk about. So first I will introduce the study. Then I'll go through the literature review, go through the methods of how I conducted the study briefly, and then focus on the findings, the discussion, and any conclusions. So let's have a look. Introduction to the study. So I thought maybe first it's worth giving a definition of what native-speakerism is. So this is from Holiday 2005. So native-speakerism is a pervasive ideology which portrays native English-speaking teachers from inner circle countries, for example, UK, USA, Australia, Canada, as the true, the only representation of English language teaching. So native-speakerism is, yes, only inner circle country teachers are true native speakers. So this does have a negative effect, or can have a negative effect, on many areas of English language teaching. For example, hiring practices, materials design, classroom instruction. And in my opinion, it's anti-EDI. It's not very equal, it's not very diverse, and it's not very inclusive, I think. So native-speakerism means that learners, students, see native speakers as the only thing they should aspire to. And it creates us, the students, the non-native speakers, versus them, the native speakers, mentality by the students and by teachers, non-native speaking teachers too. And this is kind of strange if you think about it, considering that the vast majority of English language teachers around the world are in fact not from inner circle countries. They're not native English speakers. That's true in Japan. It's true in most countries around the world. So it was with this sort of introduction to native-speakerism which caught my interest and made me think about, well, what is the situation like in my context of Japan? So I started to have a look at the literature behind that. So as I read, Japan is a hierarchical society where deference is paid to teachers and senior peers. If you don't know, in Japan, there's what they call a kohai senpai culture, senior, junior students culture, and it's the same in work and in business. It's a much stronger sort of system than we have in other countries. And in the classroom, not just in ELT, but in all classrooms, more importance is placed on being correct. And with English language teaching and learning, not intelligible, being correct. However, since the early 2000s, there have been governmental pushes to globalize pre-tertiary, so before higher education, and university and higher education English classrooms. However, Japan is still behind some of its Asian counterparts like China, Hong Kong, etc. Kubota argued the ELT in Japan creates cultural and linguistic stereotypes of English. And these stereotypes manifest themselves in learners' feelings towards so-called standard and non-standard English, i.e. standard being inner circle English. Remember, inner circle is USA, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and non-standard English. And Nonaka showed that Japanese students often feel a sense of shock when confronted with fluent English outside of the classroom. And this mirrored earlier research by Field that found the same with other non-Japanese students. So when students finally leave the classroom and they meet people in real life, it's sometimes a shock to them because they're not just from standard inner circle countries, they're from international places. And pressure, Nonaka again found that there is pressure to speak English perfectly like a native speaker. That was a feeling widely held amongst her Japanese study participants. And Rivers and Takahashi found that students in high schools in Japan place the native speaker as the ideal, the perfect model of English in their class materials, like textbooks or listening CDs. So it was these three sort of external, outside factors which are maybe affecting or have affected Japanese university students by the time they reach university. Those three things being societal norms, so the pressure to be correct in the classroom, the hierarchical society, government pushes to globalize. So university students entering now will have been throughout their education in a time when the government's been pushing to be more global, and the sort of pervasive ideology of native-speakerism throughout the teaching practices and materials of their English classrooms. So I wanted to find out, how have these three external areas influenced university students? So the purpose of my study was to uncover what Japanese university-age students perceive a native speaker to be, to ascertain if Japanese students feel the need to sound quote-unquote native when they speak English, and to uncover participants' deeper perceptions of past experiences in English learning, particularly in the area of pronunciation. Okay, the methodology, the methods of the study. So there were 44 students were accepted onto the study. 5 were rejected. They were all in the first 3 grades of university, so from 18 to 21 years of age. They were all above B1 level, which I will explain why in a moment. They had all been through the Japanese education system. The study took place at a private university in central Japan, and the study was conducted late 2021, early 2022. And I collected the data via questionnaire. So because it's a questionnaire, well, this questionnaire was non-experimental, so qualitative, and I asked participants for written responses. So that's why I made the level had to be at least B1. If you match that with the Cambridge can-do statements, B1 level means they can express their feelings, they can explain what they mean. And these were the 2 questions that I asked. Number 1, what does native speaker mean to you? And number 2, how important is it to sound like a native speaker of English? And then I provided a couple of prompts for them to think about. So they could talk about their past English education, their past English teachers, their current education. Do they plan to study abroad or anything that's helped them form their opinions? I analyzed the data using thematic analysis. So thematic analysis was conducted by hand based off Braun and Clark's model. And let's have a look at the findings. So question 1. What does native speaker mean to you? These were the 5 main themes which were uncovered going through the written responses. Theme 1 is the most common. Theme 5 is the least common. There were other themes, but they weren't common enough to become a main theme. So theme 1, what does native speaker mean to you? So these, this data showed that they thought participants thought English and inner circle countries relates to what a native speaker is. So English language, inner circle countries, countries using English. Theme 2 related the phrase native speaker to being the country of your origin. So your mother tongue, your father tongue, the country you were raised, where you were born. Theme 3 related it to your ability, your language ability. So everyday usage. Can you speak fluently without problems, issues? Theme 4 showed that there were some influences participants had, which led them to what they thought a native speaker was. So high school, university, teachers, friends and family. And theme 5, which is quite an interesting theme, was there was more of a global and nuanced perspectives held by many participants, which reference globalization, foreign friends, bilingualism, Hafu, which is a Japanese term. It means people of mixed heritage. So you have parents from different countries, that kind of thing. Let's have a see. So I just picked out some quotes from the data to exemplify the themes. So participant 13 said, the people whose first language is English especially come from USA, UK, or Australia. So you can see here, they relate native speaker to being from inner circle countries. Participant 36, theme 2. It means a person who can speak the language and understand culture due to born there. So that's more related to their home country, their mother tongue. Theme 3. Participant 40. A person who can speak fluently can speak daily life without any problems. So this shows, yeah, it's more about ability, if you can use a language, not necessarily about English or Japanese. Participant 3. Native speaker from English country. I heard it in junior high school. So this is something they've been taught. They learnt this in school, that a native speaker is from an English country. And then theme 5, the sort of global, more nuanced perspectives. I picked out a couple of quotes for this. They're interesting. Participant 1. So in my opinion, there are no native speakers. It doesn't matter who the native speakers are, because nowadays globalization is progressing. So this shows this participant sort of realizes, has noticed that globalization is happening, and they believe that there are no native speakers. We're all speakers of any language, maybe. Participant 7, I know some speakers are native speakers of more than one language, like so-called half and a first-generation American-born Japanese. Remember, half means somebody who is has a diverse heritage. That's a Japanese phrase, Japanese term, half. Participant 6. My image comes from my friends who come from Thailand. They speak Japanese in their daily life, but they speak Thai with their family or siblings. So I thought this was really interesting how maybe even though, as we looked at in the literature review, Japan is a very hierarchical country and it's quite homogenous, but there is a sort of a change in perspectives held by some. Question 2, here are some findings. Here are the main themes. So the question at the top, how important is it to sound like a native speaker of English? So theme 1 related that to communication and understanding each other. So speaking skills, mutual understanding. Theme 2, again, more nuanced perspective. World Englishes was mentioned and neutrality, being neutral to sounding like a native speaker. Theme 3, again, showed that native speakerism has influenced their feelings, the influence of teachers and social embarrassment to the way they sound. And theme 4 was a sub-theme, but it's worth mentioning that there was a sizable amount of students which couldn't really explain why they thought the way they did. They didn't know. Okay, so theme 1, participant 20. I chose strongly agree because it is very important for the communication with native speakers. So again, yes, they're talking about communication, but linking it to native speakers. Participant 8. When I was junior high school student, ALT or English teacher correct right pronunciation. So I felt that we had to imitate like native speaker. So this shows that, yes, they're being corrected and they have a model in the classroom, but maybe many students feel that that is the only way, that is the only ideal model of English. It's the native English teacher in the class or in the classroom materials. And again, some interesting, more nuanced perspectives. Participant 38. When I studied abroad in the past, people from various countries spoke English with their own unique accents. So yeah, this student's been fortunate enough to study abroad, and they've realized that when you leave the classroom context or when you go abroad, that English is spoken by many people of many backgrounds with different accents and dialects, etc. Participant 1. I have been hearing a lot of different pronunciations on the internet, and I have come to believe that pronunciation doesn't matter. Yeah, so this participant, obviously influenced by the rise in technology, social media, and that's, yeah, there are many types of English out there, and correct pronunciation, maybe he means, doesn't matter. Participant 4. It's not bad to speak English like a native speaker, but you don't have to. Too much care about that. So yeah, this participant realizing that, yeah, you can aim. It's okay to aim to speak like a British speaker, American speaker, but you don't have to. You don't have to care about that. It's not a problem. And I didn't include any quotations from sub-theme don't know, because it was just things like, I don't know, I'm not sure. So, discussion, what does this data how can we discuss this? What does this mean? So it shows that participants in this study overwhelmingly think that native speakers come from inner circle countries, echoing many previous studies. There is still an us versus them mentality. It still persists, which it did in previous studies. Us, the Japanese students, them, the native speakers. There is seemingly a sizable influence during pre-tertiary education that sounding native is correct in the ideal model, same as previous studies. But there is a rise in more global, quote unquote, global nuanced opinions and ideas of what a native speaker is and the importance of sounding, quote unquote, native. So, of course, every study does have its limitations, and this study is no different. I only collected responses in English, so of course, Japanese responses in Japanese would have provided richer data, but due to time and ability, and there was no funding for this study, I wasn't able to get translations or things like that. Participants were all from the same department in one university. So how would results have differed if it had been open to other departments, other universities, other language institutes in Japan? And unfortunately, again, due to time, and this happened during COVID, during Corona, so there was no triangulation of data. I only collected written responses. However, focus groups, interviews, those maybe, or they would have provided deeper insights, which could have been interesting. And as I showed you in the findings, there was a rise in global perspectives, but is the change in attitudes to more global perspectives the result of governmental pushes, which I mentioned before, which has been going on since the early 2000s? So was it the result of that coming through, or is it that the study was done at a foreign studies oriented context with some respondents already having spent time abroad or possibly be of dual heritage? We don't know that. And yeah, possibly also you could say that since the early 2000s, technology and social media has really boomed. So is it governmental pushes, or was it more just technological advancements which has changed our students, the participants' perspectives? So implications. So native speakerism still is a pervasive ideology. So what can we do to tackle it? That's if we think it's a problem. So I think it would be very beneficial to expose students to more world Englishes to tackle the still pervasive ideology of native speakerism. Help better prepare students for future study abroad or future education and careers, again, by greater exposure to world Englishes. So not just your British English teacher, your American English teacher, but, Indian English, Singapore English, French Canadian English, and even other world Englishes. So Korean speakers speaking English, Brazilian people speaking English, because if they travel in the future, they're likely to come face to face with those situations. And yeah, exploit changing attitudes by leaning in and further raising awareness. So these global perspectives which are being held, let's take advantage of that. And if we can, provide students with further awareness-raising material for self-study, especially in countries like Japan, which are monolingual, so they don't have much chance outside of their classrooms to interact with English. So let's, if we can, provide suitable, appropriate material, but of world English. So I found this study very interesting. I think it would be interesting to do some further research. So what could we do? Well, conduct the same research, but in other contexts, like national universities, technical colleges in Japan. Undertake the same research, but with more triangulation of data. And ideally with lower level students being offered the chance to participate, but in Japanese, if I could get some help with translation, things like that. Run a longitudinal study, so repeat the study over a few years to see if or how these perceptions and feelings continue to change. And something that we all can do as classroom teachers is to conduct action research on integrating world Englishes into our own classes in our own contexts. This is not just in Japan, we can do this anywhere. So here are my final thoughts. So this study shows that there are growing nuanced and global perceptions held by Japanese university-age students on what constitutes a native speaker and how important it is to sound native. And while there seems to be progress, as the data shows, there is still much more that needs to be done to tackle the widespread ideology of native speakerism. Again, just to say, because around the world, most English teachers are not native speakers. They're from all around the world. So I thought one thing we could do is to exchange some ideas. So for example, on my own YouTube channel, I have been starting a little playlist of micro-listening exercises to help prepare my students to study abroad. They can listen to Irish, Scouse, Scottish, Irish, more non-standard English to help them get prepared. So I set up this little Padlet link. I'll put the link in the description. If you have any ideas, then you can post it on here, and then we can share our ideas. Okay, here are the references to the studies which I referenced in the presentation, and I will put these in the description as well. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Hopefully that was interesting, and I look forward to seeing your ideas in the comments or on the Padlet link. Okay, thank you for now. Goodbye.